In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to connect a REST web service to an existing MySQL database. Let me show you what I've set up before we get going. So I've already built my project using Spring Initializer, and I added these dependencies. The MySQL driver allows you to connect to MySQL. Clearly, these are the normal ones you need for SpringBoot. And I have just some names over here. Pick whatever version of Java you have, whatever Maven project you want. I also have a database already built and running. This is from Philip Pratt's Guide to SQL. This is his Henry books. So I've got these 5 tables here. I'm just going to simply work with book today. Do a select star from book. I've got 33 rows with a book code, a title, a publisher code, a type, and a paperback. Yes, no. When I take a look at the table, I've got 5 string fields. So when I'm finished with this video, we're going to have connected from REST service using Java into my locally run MySQL version. Now I'm using XAMPP to run my MySQL because it's nice and simple. It's a double click and it runs, but you can use other versions of this instead of XAMPP. Okay, so I have my project open and I'm ready to go. And first thing I need to deal with is I need to deal with security. So you see I'm running XAMPP, and I started up the phpMyAdmin. For those who are unfamiliar with it, that's just here. phpMyAdmin is a nice, easy way to interact with your database. You can do all this in the command line prompt, but it's nice and simple here. So I'm going to go to Henry, and I'm going to create a user. And the reason I'm going to create a user is you do not ever want to connect to a database that's web-facing with the root user. The root user owns the whole database system. They can add, delete, drop, whatever you want. So you want to create a user that has limited privileges when it's web-facing. So I'm going to go to privileges to do this, and I'm going to add user, and I'm going to call it REST user. I'm going to force it to be local because I'm running it locally. So I'm only going to allow people on my computer to connect to my MySQL. If this were reality, it would be any host or a list of hosts, but it's just because I'm local in my box. I'm going to create an exciting password of password. Please do not use that bad of a password on something that's actually web-facing. Do not. I'm going to leave everything else alone for right now, and I'm going to hit go. And now here are my database-specific privileges. You really shouldn't allow you to create tables from the web. It's okay to lock them and do referencing, but you shouldn't do any of this stuff web-facing with this user because it just invites hackers. For the data, do what you need. As a most secure, you could just do select because that allows you to view the data. If you're going to have this REST service create, update, and delete, then you got to give them all CRUDs. Do what you need there. Don't give more than you need. If you know that you're not going to do updates and deletes and inserts, then don't check them on. Just give the absolute bare minimum level permissions. So I'm going to hit go. So I now have REST user with the username of password. Alright, so let's now go back and do some coding. So I'm going to create a folder here, as we do. I'm going to call it Henry. And inside of Henry, I need a class for my database table I wish to read from, and I need a controller for that. Well, I'm going to read from book. And so we see I've got 5 fields here. And I'm going to make my life simple. I'm going to mimic the exact field structure that's here. So I'm going to create myself a class in Henry. I'm going to call it book. Book.java. And I'm going to create everything private. Now keep our life easy, make everything string. So I need book code, title, publisher code, type, and paperback. What was next? Is publisher code, type, paperback. You do not have to match your field names to the table. It just makes your life a lot easier. Create your setters and getters, etc. However you do that, pull it off. Okay, so you have your class. Do I have an error in here? That's interesting. There's no more errors. Beautiful. And now we're going to create a controller. And this controller, of course, is going to handle the REST interaction between these. So I need some imports. So I'm going to import org Spring Framework HTTP star. I'm going to import framework.web.bind.annotation.star. Why aren't you dropping? Thank you. There's some more we'll need as well. I'm going to need some MySQL stuff, but I'll get there when I get there. Okay, so if you've built a simple REST controller, you know that we need to tell Java that this is our REST controller. And inside, we need to at least respond to GET. All right, so this is going to return a list of type books. We use a response entity so I can send back, okay, 404, whatever. Then return new response entity. It should be blank. Let's test that. I'm going to fire up Postman. Should have had that started to begin with. So Postman's up and running. I'm going to start my web service while this is running. Let's create a new request here. All right, so I'm going to put my request in. HTTP localhost 8080, Henry. I get blank back, and I get OK. All right, so my service is responding. We now need to start the process to connect this. I need to do some more imports. and I need to start writing some MySQL, or some SQL, excuse me. We're going to import Java SQL star. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to create a connection to the JDBC driver. We're going to build a connection to our URL, and we're going to log in, and we're going to catch some errors and make sure that we get there. So let's come down here and start writing our code. So I'm going to select star from book order by title. Now, save yourself a lot of grief. Make sure your SQL actually runs. I don't know how many times I've had a student come to me, "Hey, my REST doesn't work, my REST doesn't work." And I'll say, "Did you check your SQL?" "Of course I did." And they don't check their SQL. Check your SQL. So I know my SQL works, so I can move forward. I'm going to create a book here. And now I'm going to actually connect. This is going to want surrounded with a try catch. And I'll handle these errors here momentarily. This loads up your driver. Please make sure you spell it right. com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. Java Database Connectivity is what that stands for. The D is capitalized in driver. I now build a connection to the database. And the connection is JDBC :MySQL :// URL port you're running on. The default port is 3306 / name of the database. My user, as we created, oops, wrong one. My user as we created was REST user at localhost. You can just do REST user typically, and I created password. We'll see if that works. My password was literally password. Don't do that. In reality, I've said that before. Now this thing wants another try catch. So I can just, thank you for helping me. That should pick it up. Of an extra curly brace. All right. When I'm doing each one of these, is I'm going to return an error. And I'm going to send back the error itself. Not thinking here. I'll get part of my error set in the toString here. I'll add that to response. And I'll send that back. And I'll pick some type of error, like internal service error. some formatting here because this looks pretty bad. And it didn't help me. Thank you. And then up here, I want to make sure I close. All my code will go here. So I'm going to run this and verify that I don't get an error. If I get an error, then I have a problem with my connection, and I need to fix that before I move on. Connection refused. Why is connection refused? They did not start. Where am I missing a curly brace? Here. See if it starts now. See if it connects. Okay, I'm connecting. Awesome. All right, so the service works. Let's see what happens if we have a bad password. So I'm going to screw up my username here. I'm going to save. Come back here to Postman, send. Because of the way I set up that response, I get the error message back. And I get internal service error. So I'll make sure to put my U back in there. If you want to get rid of a couple of these warnings, like this one, for instance, set up the cast. Not required, but definitely safer. Okay, so now let's actually do something and connect. So we have our SQL written. We're going to read out of the result set and do something with it. So after you make a connection to a database, you need a statement. This is what allows you to run commands. Execute query runs a query that returns data. And my variable was SQL. If you're running something like an update or an insert into, you would just use execute instead of execute query. And now I'm going to parse through the records, add it to a customer, and add it to my response list. While records.next will keep walking through that result set, one record at a time, and do something with it. So I'm going to set each one of these values. And what you do here is you'll set string for each one of the variables. So book code. And if you don't remember the name of the fields, go back and do a describe table. And you'll see them. Oh, I got a capital B there. Case matters. So capital B. So paperback, and the order doesn't matter, as long as you get them all. I prefer to use get string. There's another get that does it by position, but that gets really complicated. You've got more than like 4 or 5 records or fields. add this particular book to the response. I don't care about that particular warning. I would verify they got all those field names right. Book code, paperback. This is publisher code. Title, type. Looks like I'm clean. Cases I'll match. Let's save. Let's go back to Postman and see what we get. Boom, there's my books. Alright, so in this video, you demonstrated how to connect a REST web service to a MySQL database. You saw how to handle errors, you saw how to create a user, and you saw how to display the information. Clearly, we could pass parameters into this thing and change what books we get back, and you're a good enough programmer to pull that off. All right, well, thanks for watching, and good luck to you.